of Libya of tomorrow. First, I will outline the major challenges we face in our reform process in Libya to move from a managed society to a free society, and from an artificial economy to a real economy. I will then turn to the specific policies and institutions I advocate for the Libya of tomorrow. I anticipate that some will react with skepticism that I am presenting a vision of participatory democracy in a region of the world that has been resistant to democracy, at least dominant model of Western party-based representative democracy. Scholars have sought to find explanation for the general absence of Arab democracies, often pointing to Arab culture or Islam, or level of economic development. I am certain that the problem is not Islam, which has a long history of tolerance, consultation with the people, and economic and scientific development. Recent survey data in the region clearly show that Islam is not incompatible with democracy and does not discourage the emergence of attitudes favorable to democracy. One major problem is the legacy of colonialism and the fact that many Arab states have relatively new problems formed when Europeans established colonies after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. Most Arab states have no traditional established communities or national identity, which provides an important basis for successful democracy. We have largely had a barren Arab identity. In Libya, we have had no tradition of a civic culture of participation obligations and commitment to the public good. Instead, we have a historical legacy of distrust of a central administration run by foreign colonial powers. The territory of modern Libya was under Turkish rule from the 16th century to the outbreak of the World War I. In 1922, when the Italian Fascist Party assumed power in Rome, there was a brutal policy of subjugation of Libyans by force. With independence in 1952, Libya was ruled by a king, whose legitimacy rested on his position as the head of a major Sufi religious order, and based on support of the major tribal groups. The king banned political parties, which is still in effect until now. After that, revolutionary thoughts and indoctrination prevailed for 40 years. All these facts make it harder to create a modern democracy. Geopolitics is also an important factor in making it difficult for democracy in the region. The fact of the interstate conflict in the Middle East, the Arab-Israeli conflict, serves to reinforce authoritarian political and security structures. Arab states spend 3 times higher percent of GDP on security than NATO countries. 11 of the 16 Arab states are so-called frontier states that suffer from the problem of the oil curse. Of the 23 states in the world that receive the majority of their export earned from oil and gas, not one is considered a democracy by the criteria of Freedom House or other accepted measures. Oil-rich states have a heavily centralized bureaucracy because it is the recipient and distributor of the oil wealth. citizens have an incentive to remain passive and seek a share of the pie through the capability to support, bribe, and stay close to those who distribute state wealth. Civil society is weak and co-opted by the state. There is little entrepreneurship since most people in business service the state or its oil sector, or otherwise feed off government contracts. The best and brightest young talent typically work as representatives of foreign companies. They are daunting challenges, yet we must find a way forward to achieve a truly democratic society. I believe democracy should maximize popular political participation. Democracy should ideally be what it literally means, ruled by the people. It may be difficult to build democracy in this part of the world, but there are also very serious problems with democracy in Western countries. Even in years that set records for voter participation for a U.S. presidential election in 1964 and 2008, the turnout just breaks the 60% mark of eligible voters. This means that 40% of eligible voters did not participate at all. And usually, about half of those who do not participate support the losing candidate, meaning that about 25 to 30% of the eligible electorate gets a representative from whom they actually voted. We see just how far party-based representative democracy with plurality voting has taken us away from rule by the people and given us rule by political factions and special interests. The Pew Research Center report published last month found that 76% of Americans believe that elected officials in Washington care only about their careers and, influenced by special interests, are unwilling to compromise, spend too much money, and are out of reach of touch. Other representative democracies with different electoral system also have serious problems. A proportional representation system does give citizens a more direct impact on political power because it increases the number of effective votes and the number of winners. But multi-party voting based on percentage of the vote has its own problem, such as unstable coalition and the absence of a majority-based government. Over the past 3 decades, Libya has conducted a social experiment to try to create an alternative to the dominant model of party-based representative democracy, a direct democracy in the spirit of an ancient atlas. So, in theory, Libya is the most democratic state in the world because we have a national system of direct forms of popular political participation, the town meeting style gathering called basic people's conferences. In practice, however, the reality has fallen far short of the idea. This can largely be explained by the difficult challenges I noted at the outset. We have had to try to build a civic culture of participation in the post-colonial state, in a region plagued by geopolitical conflict and oil First,